We're talking about some running backs that we have to stash for the 2024 season. It is important to note stashing running backs is important because running backs, they run amok. It is best to be prepared. Try to get some of these guys cheap as soon as possible. And hey, if you want some better advice aside from just listening to this podcast, which of course we always appreciate, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. We're doing free 7-day trials of our Discord, but let's kick it off. Nate, who is your first running back stash? This must have been painful for you to do, by the way.
It was. But I had to go with Roschon Johnson as my first stash.
All right, I like
Um,
this.
Yep, Khalil Herbert just has 1 year left on his contract. Foreman's on a 1 year deal, so he's a free agent after this season. Roschon Johnson saw a season high 74% of snaps in week 12. Week 13, they had to buy. I always like rookies post buy, so I'm a little excited to see what he can do. Now, he's seen kind of more of the field because of injuries. So, coming off this buy, is he going to really have the impact if everyone's healthy? I'm not sure yet, but when he's been out there, he's been pretty good because in that Week 12 game, 15 touches to Khalil Herbert's 8. So they're choosing to give him the ball. At the beginning of the year, we did see Roschon Johnson catch a lot of passes as well. In a lot of garbage time. So they've given him snaps throughout the entire year. Might not just be a stash, but might be someone you can even flip before the season's over because he might have opportunity going into the rest of the season. If they like him over Herbert and Foreman's not going to be getting the touches outside of around the goal line, Roschon Johnson might be, a flex play you can rely on for the rest of the season. So got him stashing right now. That's best case scenario. Otherwise, he's just kind of, in that committee for the rest of the season. And he's a guy that you're having as in your 1-2 depth chart for the Bears backfield next year. Based on their backfield, Khalil Herbert in the contract year, Roschon Johnson in his second year on his rookie deal. The Bears are going to be happy with that. They're going to surround Fields with probably another receiving weapon. So I'm not worried about Roschon Johnson not having opportunity last year. He's definitely going to have some kind of opportunity next year. What do I have to pay to get Roschon Johnson? A late second right now, James Conner from a rebuilding team, Raheem Mostert. If there's you're a rebuilding team, a competitive team has Roschon Johnson, they'll probably take Raheem Mostert. I believe going into the week
For
was the
sure.
RB2 on the season for Roschon Johnson. You probably can get something on top of that as well. Mike, if we had to put a player comp, we do player comps all the time for our prospects, but a player comp for this stash of Roschon Johnson. Best case scenario, he turns out to be Brian Robinson 2.0.
All right.
Otherwise, I think that Roschon Johnson can probably be a decent backup. Jerome Ford is a good backup who we've seen perform well this year. Alexander Madison's had his ups and downs, but I think Roschon Johnson could be a pretty solid RB2, if he can't perform at a higher level.
Yeah, and I like this. I think he's a great stash too. You could also almost make a case that Foreman would be a good stash as well for next year. I think he goes somewhere and he's relevant.
He keeps making it happen despite, I believe he's 28 as well. Speaking of going back to Austin Eckler, who I haven't talked about since last podcast, but as well.
He's productive. He's been going anywhere he's been going productive. He's been really productive. So I like this though. For me, I personally went a little more value based. I'm trying to give people, maybe you don't have a lot of early draft capital or you want to save that for players that you're really excited about, but you want to make some moves to try to bolster. So I went kind of all value based here. My first one is Washington Commanders running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. Yes, I know I might sound crazy, but Tony Gibson's a free agent after the season. Oh, by the way, hate to tell you this, but the guy that we said that was going to be a good NFL running back and Brian Robinson is, the Commanders really like him. So why wouldn't they also roster a guy whose game resembles Brian Robinson? He's efficient on the ground too. 5 yards a carry. This is a low risk, high reward type player. I think he could be up to a running back 3 given the opportunity, or a good flex or injury bye week fill in. So look what you could get him for right now, Nate. This is amazing.
For cheap.
The value is here. You could move Darius Slayton, the leading wide receiver for the New York Giants, for Chris Rodriguez Jr., a 24 fourth. You can also move players like Tommy DeVito, Jake Browning, backup quarterbacks that you don't need if you're not in contention. These are guys that you were throwing fab at a couple weeks ago to play keep away, which is, I told you, that's how you weaponize your fab. You play keep away from your opponents. That's why you trade for fab. Then you use it against them so you can get players that you can use to fill in later on. do it. Jalen Guyton, Xavier Hutchinson. These are guys that you can move for right now. Jalen Guyton is great. I like Xavier Hutchinson too, but with how spotty outside of Tank Dell, Nico Collins, the Houston Texans wide receiver room has been, he hasn't gotten many chances. You know what I mean?
Hey, Hutchinson was out on the field this week with Tank Dell's injury, so might see a little bump here.
Well,
Might
maybe
be a nice little stash himself.
maybe John Mechie is the next guy to stash too.
Ooh, John Mechie.
But he's very similar in build and running styles a lot of times to Jordan Howard. I thought it's a pretty powerful back. So Chris Rodriguez, stash him, yay, nay. Nate, what do you think?
I'm fine with this for the call. Like a fourth. Darius Slayton, Jalen Guyton. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Jake Browning.
I think with Jake Brown, you can get more than Chris Rodriguez at this point because, hey, Jake Browning looked pretty good this past week.
All right, so Nate, I thought about this guy that you put on here. It felt gross to say it, but this is where we're at.
No, I know. But this kind of seems like a player who's going to stick around a while and just stick on rosters and just keep popping back up. So go ahead and get ahead of the swing. Zack Moss, a stash that you want to look into because, look, he's a potential league winner and he is acquirable right now. I'm trying to sell Zack Moss in one league. Zach gave me crap because I asked for a late second. And I think that might be a lot to ask for, but he is a competing team that needed a running back. But I would take a third for Zack Moss. I would also buy Zack Moss for a third if I'm a competing team because he is a league winner. He's also someone who's going to be a free agent after this season. And we saw how well he's done in replacement for Jonathan Taylor earlier this season. I expect him to do the same thing the rest of the season. And if he does that, if he performs well going into the offseason, he's going to be a priority free agent because it's a what have you done for me recently kind of league. And if Zack Moss is coming off a 6-game stretch where he was a league winner, a team's going to pay Zack Moss and he's going to have an opportunity somewhere. Maybe not to lead an entire backfield, but he's going to be part of a 1-2 committee. He's going to get opportunities, and he's going to be someone that you can buy for a third-round pick right now, become a league winner, and still have relevance going into next season. I like this. Kind of reminds me of a player like Jamal Williams when he was on the Packers. And he was just a consistent player that, you can always put into your lineup, even though he had that timeshare with Aaron Jones. That's what I think Zack Moss could look like next year, and this year is the league winner. I like that a lot.
I like this too. And at that price, I'm completely fine with it. And I agree with what his future could potentially look like. Speaking of future, I can't wait to hear from you guys in a couple minutes. We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Hey guys, Bob here, dropping by to interrupt your scheduled programming to thank today's trusted partner, Mint Mobile. I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for ways to save money, especially during the holidays. And it always shocked me to see what I was paying when it came to my wireless bill. I couldn't help but think, what am I even paying so much money for? Am I paying for speed, coverage, data, access to 5G, unlimited talk and text, mobile hotspots, you name it. I was paying so much money while Mint Mobile offers all of these features for as low as $15 a month. And I know what you're thinking. It was my first thought too. How can they only charge $15 a month for that much coverage? It's easy. They keep it simple. For starters, they're built on the nation's largest 5G network, and they keep costs low by only selling online. This means no pushy sales rep trying to earn a commission or brick and mortar locations. The cost is great, and don't worry, they made switching easy too. This is all thanks to the Mint Mobile app and digital eSIMs that most phones now have. This means you can sign up and activate your phone from the comfort of your own home and start saving today. And as an ad note, if your phone isn't compatible with a digital eSIM, they'll send you a physical new SIM card for free. Switching was a breeze, and now I'm saving money while enjoying all the same YouTube videos, streaming NFL games, and listening to podcasts just like I used to. All of this without any drop in video quality, speed, or performance. And the last thing I'll say is this: big wireless companies want you to think that they're the only option. And quite frankly, that's just not the case. We all deserve a wireless plan that works for us on our budget. And now through January 1st, you'll receive an additional 3 months free when you sign up for a 3-month plan using our link, trymintmobile.com/Dynasty Rewind. The link will be on the screen in the YouTube description as well as in the pinned comment below. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting this brand as much as you do, and a huge shout out to our new partners at Mint Mobile. But with all of that said, let's get right back to the content you came for.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Let's talk about my next stash running back. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back, Sean Tucker. I can't believe he hasn't gotten more run. Great news. Keyshawn Vaughn is a free agent after this year. He's going to be a free agent, and as will Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield. So the Bucs, they need to invest elsewhere on offense. Running back might not be one of them. could be the number 2 behind Rachaad White. Hopefully Zack Moss doesn't go there. Be a good guy to plug in.
He would be a good committee with Rachaad White.
That would
Rachaad White's a much better runner so far this season.
That would really screw me over here. But check out some of these values here. Late third, early fourth. Hey, again, Tommy DeVito. You could move Amari DiMercado for Sean Tucker right now. Justice Hill, Tyler Scott. What do you think? You going to stash or pass the pre-draft darling from the 2023 rookie class?
I already have so much of Sean Tucker. I have him stashed already on a bunch of taxi squads. So I'm still stashing him. You know, these running backs, they have a knack for popping up at random times. You know, Sean Tucker might do nothing for 2 years, and then third year you're picking him off the waiver wire for, 23 fab because you got to play him for the next 4 weeks. So, I like Sean Tucker. I've always thought he's been talented, but he hasn't really got much run for Tampa Bay recently. So it does kind of worry me. But hey, Keyshawn Vaughn's not there next year, right? So,
who also hasn't gotten a lot of run.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just been Rachaad White. All right, Nate, you're stashing Chev's boy. Who you got?
Yeah, Chev's boy. I got Chase Brown here. This is a running back that we liked a lot in the offseason coming out, through the draft. Getting the run as the running back 2 right now for the Bengals behind Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon's been the talk of potential, being on the way out for the last year or so. And they can save $5 million this next season by cutting him. So he has a casualty candidate. There's already rumors about, they're going to get rid of him or they're going to not. Either way, if they do keep him around, you're going to have a sell window during that drama. And if they don't keep him around, you might have the, not maybe the workhorse running back for the Bengals next year, but I would expect Chase Brown to be definitely in the mix of any committee that would be there next year. I don't see him as the workhorse, like I said, the bell cow, though he did handle a ton of carries during his college days. But I think Chase Brown, they like him in Cincinnati. You hear some of the players talk about him. Jake Browning made sure to talk about him specifically in the post game. He said Joe Mixon did great, but also Chase came in for some really good runs. They like him over there with the Bengals. And right now he's still pretty cheap, like a mid-third, late third is what it takes to get Chase Brown. Just talking about the RB2 basically on the Bengals now. Remember a guy like Chase Edmonds who just kind of was the RB2 on the Cardinals for so long, was productive in that role, bounced around a couple places, did pop up in relevance, then kind of fell off, popped back up. I think Chase Brown, you could have some productive years as the RB2 for the Bengals and then kind of, pop around the league for a couple of years.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm completely fine with the value as well. My last one, not a huge value like the other guys, but Kendre Miller. Been battling injuries, hamstring strain, a bruised shoulder, and ankle sprain. So he's been just banged up.
Can't stay healthy, man.
No. So that's why I'm trying to grab him now while I can, because we all liked him pre-draft. And, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity because of that. Alvin Kamara playing really well. I think he's going to get a bigger workload next year. They're not just going to let him chill on the bench. The Saints do have a lot of money tied up, and both Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams, maybe they decide to move on from one or both of them. It's always possible. You could have a starting running back or at least a 1A. And I think he could potentially end up being a running back 2 on your fantasy team at one point in time. So what we're looking at to get him, you can move a projected late second, players like Jalen Hyatt, Daniel Jones in a super flex. Probably need a little bit. I don't know if you need more, but Daniel Jones is hurt. Matthew Stafford, James Conner, Dameon Pierce, who I know Nate's not really a huge fan of. And
no, so I mean, which is so wrong because going into last year's NFL draft, I was a huge Dameon Pierce fan. I just feel like I got screwed.
Yeah. And I think he could be kind of like a David Montgomery-ish type player. Nate, before we wrap this up, I wanted to bring this up to you. Would you stash Arizona Cardinals running back Michael Carter?
I would, because before I scrolled down the show sheet, I was thinking about making Michael Carter one of my stashes for this segment, actually. He's looked good in the game that he played for the Cardinals. He came in right away and kicked out DiMercado out there with 4 receptions in this game against the Rams in week 12, 34 yards, had 4 carries this past week against the Steelers. He immediately became the RB2 as soon as he got on the team. The Jets released him because they knew he was too good to sit on the bench. I appreciate that. I think all of us fantasy players appreciate that. We loved Michael Carter coming out of college. He has been productive for the Jets when they've called upon him. Cardinals outside of James Conner don't have too much going at the running back position. James Conner has dealt with injuries before. I would definitely stash Michael Carter. There might be a chance that he's going to have a couple weeks just before the end of the season where he might be relevant. So definitely a guy I'm stashing.
What do you think it would cost? Because I would like to stash Michael Carter as well.
Well, on Keep Trade Cut right now, he's next to players like Justice Hill, Jeff Wilson, Jamal Williams, Cam Akers. So I don't think it's going to cost you very much right now. Probably a 4th round pick. Probably gets it done for Michael Carter.
You can move Terrace Marshall for him right now.
You probably could.
That's it for us, everybody. So thank you for stashing your time with us. For Nate, I'm Mike. We'll see you next week.